Have a Fox News alert. Donald Trump says on Truth Social that he's been indicted. Quote, "The corrupt Biden administration has informed my attorneys that I have been indicted, seemingly over the boxes hoax, even though Joe Biden has 1,850 boxes at the University of Delaware, additional boxes in Chinatown, D.C., with even more boxes at the University of Pennsylvania, and documents strewn all over his garage floor where he parks his Corvette, and which is secured by only a garage door that is paper thin and open much of the time."
Very sadly, we're a nation in decline, and yet they go after a popular president, a president that got more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country, by far, and did much better the second time in the election than the first. And they go after him on a boxes hoax, just like the Russia hoax and all of the others. This has been going on for 7 years. They can't stop because it's election interference at the highest level. There's never been anything like what's happened. I'm an innocent man. I'm an innocent person. They had the Mueller hoax, the Mueller report, and that came out. No collusion after 2.5 years. That was set up by Hillary Clinton and Democrats. But this is what they do. This is what they do so well. If they would devote their energies to honesty and integrity, it would be a lot better for our country. They could do a lot better. They could do a lot of great things. So I just want to tell you, I'm an innocent man. I did nothing wrong. And we will fight this out just like we've been fighting for 7 years. It would be wonderful if we could devote our full time to making America great again. And that's exactly what we did. But now, again, our country is in decline. We're a failing nation. And this is what they do. I'm an innocent man. We will prove that again. 7 years of proving it. And here we go again. Very unfair. But that's the way it is. I just want to thank everybody.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this. So they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic, and it's self-evident.
So you probably became in history the most investigated president of all time.
Times 10.
Okay. So,
But if my poll numbers went down, it would all end. You know, every time my poll goes up, I say, oh, this is a problem.
But as with many of these cases, Jesse, it comes down to timing. They don't have a lot of runway before the presidential election. And the court's going to be in a tough position how to deal with this criminal case when you have the leading candidate for president who wants to be campaigning. Then there's the final issue here, which is going to get really wicked. And that is, Trump could run on pardoning himself. You know, for people that feel that this is bias, that this is part of a pattern, he could turn this on his opponents and actually run on his right to pardon himself. So if he's elected, even if he's convicted, he could pardon himself, or he can do so before a trial occurs.
yeah, the good old pocket pardon. So Fox is hearing that it involves obstruction and handling of documents or mishandling of documents.
There's a big debate as to whether you should or be able to impeach someone for conduct before they became president. One of the interesting things here is that Joe Biden, as president, has been denying these allegations. So there may be a bootstrapping that can occur. But the Democrats just created a precedent that you can impeach a former president, because President Trump had left office by the time of his Senate trial. And so they may have created precedent that would allow you to impeach Vice President Biden, to go back retroactively to impeach. So this is just going to get very, very weird.
So you could have a federal trial of Donald Trump and an impeachment trial of President Biden at the same time in an election year. 2024 is going to be crazy.
Yeah, business is good for those of us on the legal commentary side.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor. Unbelievable.
Thank you.
Presidential race. Vivek Ramaswamy is the first Republican presidential candidate to come out with a statement on this. Let me read you in part of the statement. We cannot have two tiers of justice, one for Trump and one for Biden, one for Assange, one for Manning, one for BLM and Antifa, and one for peaceful protesters on January 6th. Strong. I never thought that we'd see the day where the U.S. president deputizes the DOJ to arrest his rival in the middle of an election. Obama shamefully tried to deputize the FBI to infiltrate Trump's 2016 campaign, but they're leaving nothing to chance this time around. The federal police state is outright arresting Trump. This is an affront to every citizen. We cannot devolve into a banana republic where the party in power uses police force to arrest political opponents. It's hypocritical for the DOJ to selectively prosecute and persecute Donald Trump, but not Biden. That's exactly and 100% totally and completely correct. Joe Biden, by the way, had absolutely no right, no plenary power to classify or declassify records. That power is vested completely inside the executive, which is an article of the Constitution, which is, of course, given to one man. Joe Biden illegally had classified documents. Joe Biden had no right to them. Barack Obama could save Joe Biden with a word, but he won't, because I think they're planning on taking down Joe Biden as well. That's my own contention. But they're going to get Trump first. There are also serious legal questions about President Trump's power to declassify documents and the potential legality over the classification of federal documents in the first place. That's for the courts to decide. But we, the people, decide who governs this nation. This is a strong statement by, again, Vivek Ramaswamy. It would be much easier for me to win this election if Trump weren't in the race, but I stand for principles over politics. I commit to pardon Trump promptly on January 20, 2025 to restore rule of law in this country. Hot damn, man. Way to go, Vivek.
Much luck with this as it moves forward. And what about all the allegations of prosecutorial misconduct that we've seen just in this case alone?
Yeah, the prosecutor seems to be someone with an axe to grind. It seems to be why that prosecutor was selected for this purpose. If you look at some of the prior political activity and connection to left-leaning political figures and groups, this was a hit job. And it is stunning to think about that courthouse in Miami bearing out the scene on Tuesday where Donald Trump will present himself. I believe that's the same federal courthouse where they held Manuel Noriega, the former dictator of Panama. And then to think we would visit this harm in my state, on our country. It is such an abuse of federal power. We should immediately be holding congressional hearings on this to ascertain by what authority was this Jack Smith individual kind of screened and reviewed for bias, and to what extent were civil liberties potentially violated. We know in the New York Alvin Bragg case that Mark Pomerantz pled the fifth when asked whether or not he broke any laws when trying to get Trump.
We've got some more details here, Congressman. The former president's been indicted on at least 7 federal charges, including illegal retention of classified documents, obstruction, and on conspiracy. So the first one, illegal retention of classified documents. Okay, fine. So let's charge President Biden with the same thing. Let's charge Mike Pence with the same thing. In fact, it's even worse because neither of them could declassify the documents that they've taken. But we also have obstruction and we have conspiracy. Do you have any clarity on what they're going to try and do with conspiracy here? I mean, the obstruction is obvious. They think that's because he slow-walked the return of them. He wasn't giving them back as fast as they wanted. What do you think conspiracy means in this thing?
Well, as to the obstruction, it's a common theme from the Department of Justice when they've got a weak underlying matter to kind of layer in obstruction to try to bring this air of criminality over what would otherwise be a non-criminal negotiation or interaction with the compliance with the Federal Presidential Records Act. And keep in mind, there's no Vice Presidential Records Act. President Trump had more authority to have these records, certainly, than Joe Biden did as the former vice president. And so if there's legal ground to stand on, these are not equivalencies. President Trump on far better legal ground. I think you'll probably find a pretty favorable jury in Miami-Dade County. President Trump's got a lot of fans down there.
Mr. President, okay. Classified material next to your Corvette. What were you thinking?
People, and by the way, my Corvette's in a locked garage. Okay, so it's not like you're sitting out in the street.
So
but anyway,
was in a locked garage.
Yes, as well as my Corvette. But as I said earlier this week, people know I take classified documents and classified material seriously. I also said we're cooperating fully and completely with the Justice Department's review. As part of that process, my lawyers reviewed other places where documents in from my time as vice president were stored, and they finished the review last night. They discovered a small number of documents of classified markings in storage areas and file cabinets in my home and my personal library. This was done in the case of the Biden Penn. This was done in the case of the Biden Penn Center. The Department of Justice was immediately, as was done, the Department of Justice was immediately notified, and the lawyers arranged for the Department of Justice to take possession of the document. So we're going to see all this unfold. I'm confident.
Thank you, Alina Habba. So just to summarize, Fox has not confirmed the indictment. The former president has just announced this on Truth Social, that he has been informed by his attorneys that he will be indicted over what he calls the boxes hoax. Alina, what can you tell us?
I can tell you that's exactly how I would characterize this, for the president to be indicted for something that every other president, every other non-president, including vice presidents, have done, shows what a sick world we are living in. I am petrified for the country at the moment, Jesse. Sad for my client, although he is resilient and strong. And it just tells me once again why we need him back in the White House. It is a very sad state of affairs in this country.
Have you spoken to the former president since this happened? Have you had any conversations with his legal team? What's the sense there?
I would never discuss any privileged conversations that I have, of course. I can tell you that obviously he put something out which says he's been indicted. It speaks for itself. I can also say that there is a two-tier system of justice that we are seeing right now. Hillary Clinton smashed a computer, got rid of emails. We had recordings in sock drawers. We have Biden and Obama who are hiding things. Biden still has things in Chinatown in his home with a son who's a drug addict, and nothing happens to these people. So when your name is Donald Trump, when you're leading in the polls, you are going to get hit hard. You are going to get indicted until you can't take it anymore. But they picked the wrong guy, Jesse. They picked the wrong guy. And I think that that's why he's so ahead in the polls. And that's why he'll probably.
So if it goes to D.C., right now we're in June 2023. You got a Republican primary just starting to heat up. What is the timetable for a trial in the middle of a Republican primary, possibly a general election?
Well, that's the issue. This is clearly election interference by Joe Biden. This is clearly election interference. Isn't it funny that the day that Joe Biden gets caught taking $10 million from Burisma, Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland greenlights this indictment of his leading presidential rival? I mean, the timing is just coincidental, right? Well, yeah. Here's what happens. Trump could try to move to dismiss the indictment, the sufficiency of the indictment early on, because there's not a legal basis for the indictment. The Presidential Records Act, not the Espionage Act, applies. I doubt a uniparty judge is going to go along with that. And so this will probably have to get resolved by the Supreme Court. It should be 9-0 by the Supreme Court if they actually follow the law. But at the end of the day, Trump may get elected in 2024 as a convicted felon who the Supreme Court has to reverse his conviction because it's a bogus.
Oh, my God. My God. Oh, my God. That will be something.
Trump says he's not going down without a fight.
But they're not coming after me. They're coming after you. I'm just standing in their way.
I never thought we'd see the day when a party in power, a U.S. president, has a Department of Justice under him that arrests his lead rival during an election, in the middle of an election. Yet here we are. We have two standards of justice. One for BLM rioters and Antifa, another one for peaceful January 6th protesters. One for Chelsea Manning, another one for Julian Assange. Guess what? Now you have one for Joe Biden, who violates the same laws about document retention and classified documents, and then one for President Trump. And actually, there's deep questions, legal questions. That's for the courts. about declassification power, about whether documents are overclassified, but that's not the point. The point today is that we, the people, decide who actually governs in this country, not some administrative police state. And I am sorry, we do not live in some banana republic where the party in power gets to use its power to arrest political opponents. And believe me, it would be easier for me if Donald Trump were not in this race. But this is not about politics to me. This is about principle. I stand on the side of principle, and I'm committing to say that if I am elected as your next president on January 20th, 2025, I will pardon not just President Trump, but every victim of a politically motivated prosecution. Believe me, there have been others too. We will restore the rule of law in this country again.
Shots, this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think the intelligence community would do if they were motivated?
I don't know, but from what I am told, they are very upset with how he has treated them and talked about them.
Goods. Now, what does that look like in this case? Do you think it comes down to, well, what are the documents he was keeping?
Well, again, I mean, I think if you are a person who grew up in a third world country, you would recognize this kind of thing as something that happens in a not entirely free society. So that's, the optics of this are terrible. I mean, there's no way around it.
Biden administration. I'm here to tell you it is a sad day in America. It happened. The corrupt Biden administration has indicted President Trump over this bogus boxes story. These so-called classified documents, which President Trump has a right to declassify at any time that he wants to. So now the Biden administration indicts a former president, making American history. Here's the deal, though. This is only going to empower President Trump, and it most certainly is only going to empower all of us. My promise is to fight harder than ever before for this man. President Trump, as he said, is our retribution. They could try to make a political prisoner out of him, try to get him not to run. They could convict him in a weaponized court with a biased jury. It won't matter. There's nothing in the Constitution that says he can't be president from inside prison. And then once he gets there, well, he can pardon himself. But before we even get there, it's going to take all of us to call out this nonsense, to hold the Biden administration accountable. The political persecution is out of control. The prosecutorial misconduct is out of control. If there should be any charges at all, it should be those running the prosecution. They have been so far out of line every step of the way here, concocting charges against him, trying to bribe witnesses, you name it. Mr. President, stand strong. We got your back.
In 2016, I declared, I am your voice. Today, I add, I am your warrior, I am your justice, and for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution. Not going to let this happen.